right, so welcome back to this week's installment of Green Enterprise, which is a partnership between my company, Digital Venture Partners, and Black Enterprise, where every week we speak with Black and Brown cannabis entrepreneurs and executives who I feel like are building their company and representing our demographic the right way in cannabis. This week we have the founder of Greenline Delivery, Terrence Taylor. How you doing today, my brother?
Good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Just me myself, I'm relatively new into cannabis. I've only been in it for about 2 years, but you were one of the first few people who I really got to see, how you maneuvered in the space and how you positioned yourself to be successful. And I think you have a really valuable vantage point that you can share with the average talent who wants to come into the space. So I would love to kind of get an idea on your backstory and, how you positioned yourself to even be successful before you came into cannabis.
Talk about pre-cannabis and how I got into it, how I transitioned in.
Yeah, like kind of your qualifications, what you were doing before you got into this, and what kind of sharpened your talents to be able to succeed.
So my backstory is I played ball. I was an athlete, college scholarship, all that. Got drafted playing ball. When that was over, I got into the car business.
So this was baseball or?
Baseball, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I got drafted by the Red Sox. And then after that, man, I got into the car business, and that's about 2006, 2007. I was a car dealer. I had a little used car dealership, which was going pretty good. But what ended up happening at that time, we had a recession hit. So we had a bunch of cars that we wanted to sell, a bunch of customers that wanted to buy, and we didn't have the banks to merge in and get those loans. To make a long story short, I had a buddy that I was working with, and he introduced us to Prop 215, medical cannabis at that time. And that's how we got in. I hooked up with this attorney, Scott Candale. He was in Marin County in the Bay Area. He put a collective together for me. And I was gonna start out with a dispensary, but the problem was at that time, you could put a bunch of money into a dispensary and any day it could get kicked in, door kicked in, and whatever you put in is just up in smoke. So I wanted to go the delivery model. Yeah, man, I put up an ad on Craigslist in 2008. I sold my first couple ounces and I was hooked from that day on. Later got on with Weed Maps and we've been rocking ever since, man.
Okay, so I would love for you to kind of give an introduction in what is the delivery model and what are some of the regulations that you have to follow as a delivery company in California right now?
Well, it's a lot of tracking inventory. Basically everything you buy from wholesale is tracked. All your sales for the day have to be tracked. And you got to keep up with your taxes. You got to separate your excise from your sales tax with city tax. So those are some of the biggest things. And then you got the regular things that any other business has with making sure you're profitable, making sure nobody's stealing, inventory management, all those type of things.
Okay. What type of license did you acquire from the state of California? Because as we know, it's like you have retail, you have delivery, you have cultivation. What did you have to get in order to be able to structure your business how you have it now?
So originally it was just a delivery license. But with that, I started finding out what the limitations were when you just have a delivery license. So I went back and I applied for a micro business license. And the micro business license, from what I understand, it is 3 tiers. And the 3 tiers that I chose were retail, delivery, manufacturing, and distribution. And the reason why I did that is because moving into Prop 215, I created a brand of products, the Loud brands. We got a bunch of pre-rolls. And I needed to be able to manufacture those products in-house, and then I needed to distribute them from my facility to other shops. So that's what made the most sense for me to have a micro business.
And a lot of people who aren't really familiar with the ins and out of cannabis, they feel like once you have acquired a license, it's just some magic $1 million ticket or multi-million dollar business venture, when really you have to work to sustain that model and make sure that you stay on the right side of the regulation. So what's some of the things that people don't know that happens once you get your license that could, possibly have it taken away, or you have a strike on your license? What are the things as an operator that you have to make sure that you are staying on top of?
Well, number one, once you get a license, that's just allowing you to be in business. Now you got to run a business, right? And you have to run a profitable, successful business, and that's hard in itself. You got to follow certain rules. You can only buy these products from these people that's licensed, and if you don't, you're gonna get slapped on the wrist, and you do it again, you're gonna get your license taken, and your privileges is out of the game. I mean, this is a corporate business now. And the thing is, you got to have funding to be able to afford to do all these things. You got to have the capital to have a staff and pay for all these people, and all those things go into running a successful business.
What's the process, or what general advice would you have for somebody who says, I want to get funded? What are some of the things you have to have in order? Like a financial model, a business plan, things such as that. What would you recommend to position themselves to get funded?
Well, we haven't been funded. We did all this ourselves. But so I can't really answer that question 100%. Everything that we did is homegrown and, independent. So I can't answer that question.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's the reality that most of us really have to face, and we don't want to. We feel like some magic investor or some magic company gonna come along with a $5 million check, and that's just not reality. You got to figure out how to do it for yourself.
I did have in my first year, I did have somebody come along, and they wanted to buy the license out for, I think, a little over $900,000. But I turned that down just because it was like, what I'm gonna do after that? What else? What am I gonna acquire another license and do it all over again? And I believed in what I'm doing, that I can make more than $900,000.
You have a model where you actually empower other minority founders and businesses to kind of operate in partnership with you. Kind of, how did you come up with that business model, and what are some of the things you look for a company before you partner with them? And if you can mention some of your partners for our viewers.
But it really kind of just happened organically. I was in this space and I was operating, doing what I was doing, and I was running Loud Brands, and then Lobo reached out to me. I guess they had another partnership that kind of fell through, and really it was just me giving them a shot and trusting them that they could come in and do what they was gonna do. I was honest with them. I told them what it was. I kept my word, and they've been successful in the space. And the same thing happened with Gas Houses, kind of just from me just being in the industry, being one of the few brown people or black people in the industry. I just started meeting Felix or seeing Felix at different locations. I start from the delivery side, I start buying product from the Cohong. That's where Gas House used to be at. So I met him there. I start seeing him at different events with like Meadow and stuff like that. And I just talked to him, and eventually it worked. And they just like, yo, let's make a deal. Let's come over. Let's work together. We hoping to get a few more equity brands over here to come work with us, because I think what we building is something special.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You guys were some of the first brands who really gave me the opportunity to kind of see how y'all operated, see how y'all maneuver day to day. And I really don't know many other brands who are operating that efficiently, right? With the integrity that you guys actually operate with. But I would love for you to kind of talk about what the climate is in Oakland, in the Bay Area, to even have a successful brand, because we look at that as kind of the mecca of cannabis, right? Especially in our culture. Like, what do you have to show as a Loud brand, as a Lobo, as a Gas House, to even survive in the face of so much competition in the Bay?
I mean, it's hard. You got to have, number one, you got to have a product that people will respond to, right? I mean, honestly, that's the last thing, right? Because the hard part is actually meeting the right buyers and getting in their space and making introductions and being able to just get your product in front of people. That's the hard part. Luckily, I mean, Gas House is Gas House. They've been in this space forever. And Lobo, one of the big things that Lobo did was a lot of the collabs, like collaborating with other brands. And it's in some cases like bigger brands and letting them do the advertising and marketing, and because they have budgets for that. We independent people, we got to focus our funds in certain areas. So that was a good thing for Lobo, like partnering with some of the collabs that it just blew the brand up.
Previously, you were talking about how you're expanding from California into Arizona and becoming a multi-state operator. What was it about the Arizona market specifically that made you interested in it? And if I'm correct me if I'm mistaken, Arizona's medical right now, right? It's not adult use yet.
Really, because for me, I went to school there. I know a lot of people in Arizona. Spent a lot of time there. And then number two, it's about to go rec there. I think it's been on the ballot. And so we figured from just a business standpoint that if we're there and we just have a head start on the market before it goes rec, it'll be a lot easier to capture that audience, when it comes rec and there's a flood. I think they got like maybe 180,000 patients right now. But I think the state maybe got, or just that region, just Scottsdale, Phoenix, Scottsdale, I think they maybe got like 3 million people or something like that. So just when it goes legal, you're going to have a 5X of consumers there.
And I would love to get your perspective as an operator in the space. I think over the past year, there's been a lot of change in just, who the power players in cannabis are, who the companies with money and influence are, as a lot of these companies who came in and raised $1 billion have burned through it and are now insolvent. So what do you think moving forward is the long-term effects of that, it not being such a green rush anymore per se from investors and large companies? So what was the effect that these large companies like MedMen and Aurora Cannabis and Acreage starting to struggle and become insolvent? What effect did that have on independent companies like yourself?
Well, it should be opening up some shelf space for brands, really, because they was controlling it. I mean, when you can give weed away or you can buy shelf space, it's hard for a regular brand coming in trying to show their product and give samples, right? Like, as a buyer, what you gonna do? I'm gonna take who gonna give me some money to put it on the shelf, right?
Because they gotta stay open.
Yeah, right. So that's what that should do. It should make it a little easier for brands and really brands and quality representing opposed to just buying space.
Okay. And then also another question that we hear often is, do you look at the traditional market as a competitor? In like previous conversations we've had, some people feel like they have to compete with the traditional market, and some people feel like it's something that doesn't affect your business as much as people think it would. So what's your take on that?
It depends on where your location is. You know what I mean? Like, I would assume it's harder for dispensaries in Oakland to sell a higher end top shelf product. Why? Because you can go to the street and you might get the same fire eighth for $25. That's gonna cost you $75 at a shop. But if you're in, the suburbs somewhere, if you're in Danville or you in Black Hawk or these suburb areas where it's still not allowed, maybe they don't got people that they can just reach out to so quickly, and they don't want to go to Oakland and deal with Oakland.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, so they not looking at no street. So it's not a competition on that level.
what's your outlook on federal legalization? Do you feel like it's something that, because we actually had a conversation with Tucky a few weeks ago, he kind of felt like that federal legalization is not really going to help Black and brown people in the cannabis space right now. Do you feel like that could be a benefit, or is that actually possibly a setback once they federally legalize?
I think it'll be a setback. And just because, I mean, what we just talked about earlier, we talking about big business coming into legal cannabis in California space. Them ain't even the real big boys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are the people that's willing to take a risk on cannabis. I'm talking about the real big players, the tobacco
Right, Johnson and
companies.
Johnson
I'm talking
and
about
Budweiser.
them guys.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Man, you ain't gonna stand a chance as an independent nothing when they come in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So,
right. And
I might be wrong, but that's what I think.
No, I agree. I feel like unless they really put some express verbiage into the legislation that benefits us, we may get left out of that conversation long term.
Sure.
You know, either being bought out or just being starved out. I feel like eventually they will figure out a way.
I think starved out would be the thing. I think it'll be starved out in that case.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they might be growing bunk weed, but shit, if they got bunk weed that costs $10,
right,
it's gonna go.
Right. And I think that's kind of what, to your point, that's kind of what Walmart did once they went global. You know, they just come into town, they drop their prices to where all the mom and pop stores can't compete, even if they are losing money. But once these other competitors close shop,
they could
they
lose
absorb
money
that market share. Right. And they boost the price back up.
I mean, you lose money for 20 years straight. It don't matter. And shit, as a matter of fact, we lose money for 20 years straight for your employees, double in pay, so they leaving you.
Right.
You know, them players, they're going to get the master growers. They're going to learn how to grow their fire because they're going to pay their way to it.
Right. And then also finally, last question before we wrap up, it's something that I get asked every day, and I'm sure you get asked every day. What do you tell the person who walks up to you and like, man, Terrence, I want to get into cannabis. How do I get into the space? How do I get my license? How do I get a dispensary? What's that advice that you give to people who come to you and they really want to explore coming into cannabis?
I would say, depending on where you at, what city you in. If you're a person from Oakland, I would say you should probably go talk to Desley Brooks. You should go talk to his people in Oakland if you're from here that want to help you get involved. Mainly Desley Brooks and I forget the department, but there's a special department for helping people of color from certain areas in Oakland to get licensed and maybe not all the way get licensed, but you get information in the right point in the right direction. That's my advice.
Okay, great. And then finally, what are your goals? I know we spoke about your transition into Arizona, but what are some of your goals for the remainder of 2020 throughout this whole COVID thing? And also after that, if you could tell us where to follow yourself, Loud Brands, and some of your other partners.
Yeah. For this year, I mean, the delivery service is doing its thing. It's been around for 12 years, so it's always doing its thing. But the goal is to get Loud Brands in more exposure and more shops. That's my personal goal. And I'm sure for Lobo, it's the same, like maintain and grow. And we're expanding out to Arizona, Lobo and Loud Brands, and then Gas House, man, they got the best weed in the state, you know.
Okay, and then where can we follow you guys on social media, including yourself?
It's Loud Brands USA. My personal is, I think it's, what is my personal? Terrence L. Taylor _ That's my personal. Loud Brands, we got Greenline _ delivery _ and Lobo Canagar, and Gas House the brand. Those are all the Instagram handles.
Okay, perfect, man. I appreciate your insight, and I appreciate, the perspective that you give young Black and brown founders, bro. And I really look forward to working with you again soon, bro.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for taking the time out and giving the brands and the company a shout out.